Good evening, everybody, and welcome to another edition of Fire Up Michigan. My name is Scott Morganroth of Motor City Madmouth, and I have a great crew lined up today. First of all, we'll lead off with George Eichorn. George, welcome back to the broadcast.
Good to be here, Scott. Have a great. We're gonna have a great evening. I know.
Oh, no doubt about it. Madman Mancini, you got the hyper, the energy, and all that stuff.
I love it, man. This is a show that's sweeping the country and the radio lines.
Yeah, it'll be a lot more than the radio lines, let me tell you, pal. And our special guest tonight, Tommy Morris, who I'm working on building a working relationship with, right, Tommy?
If the earlier conversation that we had is any preview into the show we're about to experience, it's definitely going to be a lot of fun.
I don't use the word if, my friend. I usually talk to people, and I believe in strong positives, and there's a punctuation mark that goes with what they call an exclamation point. So, for a lot of you English majors that know what an exclamation point is, Tommy Morris, we are certainly glad to have you, and we're certainly looking forward to working with you as well. So,
thank you.
With that said, Tommy, I want to make sure that you give everybody an overview of what you're about and what you're developing first, and then we'll get on to the topics at hand. And folks, this show is called the Motown Sports Scene Tonight, and we're going to be able to talk about other things. Before we do that, Tommy, I want to let everybody know, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel, or visit www.southfloridatribune.com, and follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcast. So, folks, if you're on the subway, you can listen. If you're at home, you can watch. Whatever you want to do, we're here to entertain you and inform you and make sure that we provide you with the best entertainment that we can, and we will give it our best shot. We hope you can go out there and enjoy everything we're looking to get done. With no further delay, Tommy Morris, why don't you let everybody know what you're about, the organizations that you're building, and the fact that we're certainly glad to be a part of what we're looking to accomplish together.
Well, thank you, Scott. And I founded Detroit City TV back in 2006, and was actually the first person to ever do any type of wireless live web streaming broadcast of major events in the city. And since then, it's become a credentialed, reputable journalistic media broadcast outlet with a pretty good following. We have 4 million views per month on DetroitCity.tv, and that blossomed into our recent development, which started in Detroit, has now jumped to 26 U.S. markets and a couple markets across the seas through WorldWideWebTV.com now, which is a parent company for, of course, where you're at, Florida TV, California, Boston, major markets, United States. And just as we do here now, it's, live TV. And it's the new market, the new age for us gentlemen is here, as everybody understands. It was a little different back when I started. I had to generate a wireless signal because the infrastructure wasn't there. Like such in the middle of Lake Huron for the Bayview to Mackinac races back in 2009. Even when I was broadcasting in Nashville live music events, the first one to ever broadcast stream live music in Nashville via wireless technology. And if you look back how quickly technology has developed, those weren't many years, looking 15 years ago, not even 15 years ago. And now going from trying to find rub two coat hangers together to try to get generate and engineer a Wi-Fi signal to going to just picking up your phone or Facebook and pressing a button and it's live. Now it's amazing to me how quickly it's developed.
Unbelievable. Well, I tell people all the time. So if I understand, tonight's broadcast can be picked up on Florida TV and DetroitCity.tv. Is that correct?
Yeah. It's actually the WorldWideWebTV.com will take you to the front page, but whether you go to FloridaTV.us, DetroitCity.tv, it'll take you to the same place. It's just the only difference is that WorldWideWebTV.com will take you to the front page where the direct domains will take you directly to that channel.
Right. So in the future, we're going to be putting on Bob Ryan. So I'm assuming that's going to go to Boston and Massachusetts area.
Yes.
And a lot of the broadcasts that we have are going to be geographically oriented based on the market. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Right, and on top of that, folks, this broadcast is also on the South Florida Tribune YouTube channel, on my LinkedIn personal page, as well as Twitter, and as I mentioned, at Tribune South as well. And of course, Tommy has it going on his end as well. So our main objective is to make sure we reach as many people. We work very diligently to go out there and bring this content to life, and that's what we're going to do. So,
and it's a bonus, if I may add. If I may add, it's also a bonus for the people that as we all know, for people that are involved in business, it's an evil necessity to advertise. And what we're able to do in our market is our footprint is small, but our reach is vast. And the major where people think they could never afford to put a commercial on or have any kind of radio or TV, those times have changed now where our footprint is small. So our advertisers, we provide them with a better service that the major networks cannot match. So that's the biggest change that I have seen in our industry is how we're best able to serve those people that support what we do, providing content and information to people.
Well, you've got 4 full-fledged journalists here on tonight's show and an awful lot of experience. I know Madman Mancini's running all over California with like his chicken with his head cut off. And we can call him the Astro boy when it comes to being on this thing where he's flying all over the place. More power to Mark, okay? He does get around a little bit. George and I, well, we're seasoned veterans in Detroit. The only difference I have with George is I do move around the country, a little heavy work in Arizona, North Carolina, the Tampa, South Florida area, and the list goes on and on. So what we're going to do is we'll talk about some sports a little bit tonight, and we're going to lead off this weekend, guys, with Lou Whitaker's jersey retirement this weekend, something that is very long overdue. I still wish he'd get in the Hall of Fame, but at least the Detroit Tigers are going to put number 1 next to Alan Trammell. All right, Tommy, why don't you go ahead and give us your opinion on Lou Whitaker?
I think it's about time. And gentlemen, is this just a prelude? Maybe the word did get out that the Tigers are going to do this first before he's finally admitted to the Hall of Fame. I can't see it happening too far off in the future if they're going to finally retire his jersey, which he should have done a while ago. Anyhow, it's probably kept a little bit of a hindrance to Lou from being in the Hall of Fame if your own team doesn't have your jersey retired.
Yeah, well, Willie Horton got his jersey retired. He's not in the Hall of Fame.
That's another good example.
Yeah, right. Well, when you talk about Willie Horton being in there, of course, I don't know if his numbers are Hall of Fame worthy, but he's certainly Hall of Famer in the Metro Detroit area as well. He got his up there. So, yeah, I think Lou Whitaker's deal is way long overdue. George Eichorn, what are your thoughts about Lou finally getting a piece of the wall over at Comerica Park?
Well, it's about time is all I can say. Really, 38 years. Think about that. That is just and the sad part is that it's 38 years since his franchise last hoisted a world championship banner on their flagpole. So the problem is that it does bring back memories, but they're not all good memories because it shows you the ineptitude of this Detroit franchise not winning a championship for 38 years. And certainly it pales in comparison, I know, to the Lions' ineptitude. That's a whole nother story for a whole nother show. Right. But the fact of the matter is that Lou Whitaker's been overlooked by this organization, by Mike and Marion Illich, for way too long. I'm sorry. And it's only fitting that finally that number 1 goes up in the rafters, as they say, when not exactly the same, of course, at an outdoor stadium, but the number gets painted on the wall in the outfield. And maybe someday people are saying there's got to be a statue of Lou and Alan Trammell, turning a double play. What a dual statue that would make, as you guys know, those beautiful statues that they have in deep center field at Comerica Park. But yeah, Scott, it's about time, and Sweet Lou has his day. And I hope, Tommy, you're right, man. I hope this is a harbinger of things to come, and he finally gets his place at Cooperstown as well.
All right, Mancini, we know that you know enough about Lou Whitaker and what he's meant to the baseball world. It's still a joke. He's not in the Hall of Fame. Maybe the Veterans Committee ultimately gets there. But for all intents and purposes, at least the number's going up, Mancini.
Well, show me another second baseman that was comparable to Lou Whitaker, Joe Morgan, Davey Lopes. I mean, I can list a lot more second basemen, and to have this guy not even having his jersey retired is a travesty because he's right up there. That double play combo with Whitaker and Trammell, I look at it from afar from Pittsburgh with Garner and Foley. I mean, it's a keepsake. Lopes and Russell. I mean, if one's going to get in there, you got to bring the other one with them. I mean, it's I just can't figure it out.
Nobody can, Mark.
Could the small market have hurt? Maybe if Blue was playing in New York or Chicago, could it be that Detroit, the smaller market, people didn't pay it? I don't know how you could pay attention, but they were in the World Series for crying out loud. There was won the World Series, but maybe it would be different if he was in New York or one of the other bigger markets.
Yeah, but you know what, Tommy? I don't view Detroit as a small market. I don't care what anybody says. You know, back in the day, Detroit has always been a major media market. I don't care if their population or Michigan's gone down. Everybody's moving to the south and all that. So now I think the only reason that he hasn't gotten his number retired so far is probably because of the fact that he hasn't been in the Hall of Fame. They're doing it anyways. That's item number one. And number two, you know, part of getting in the Hall of Fame is you got to treat the media nice. And from what I've heard, Lou Whitaker hasn't really treated the media that great. And you certainly want to make friends in the right places. So it's a culmination of things. Anyhow, Tommy, I just think it's good that he's going to finally get up there as well. So I got other topics I want to get to. I know that you're a big Red Wings guy, Tommy. So let's talk about the Red Wings amateur hockey. Any thoughts about that?
Did you go over the draft prior and what everybody in Detroit here is actually witnessing? They're 101 on how to either rebuild a franchise or how to build a franchise. He has done something remarkably where he keeps adding players that have the good NHL experience. The smaller signings he's had for the free agents are guys that have been in the league for maybe a year and a half, but he's able to not take away from the Griffiths, the minor league, to destroy a minor league franchise. So he can take these players that already have experience, the younger players, and that maybe could use a little bit of seasoning, and they'll see some time in Grand Rapids, but in Grand Rapids, they'll be leaders there because they already have NHL experience. So he's done the best of both worlds here. I expect the Red Wings to. I don't know if they're going to, at this point, make the playoffs, but as long as they're in contention, because it's going to be 100 points, they're going to have to again, to make the playoffs. But I hope they're there up until like the last week of the season if they miss out.
Well, here's the deal. Steve Yzerman, we know that a lot of us know about, has already done a marvelous job with the Tampa Bay Lightning. I know he's a team builder for Team Canada as well. So there's no question his track record has been there. He's learned from good mentors. No, let's not kid ourselves. He probably learned a boatload of things from Scotty Bowman as well as the other ones. So I tell you what, if I were a bet man, I believe Steve Yzerman will get him in the playoffs sooner than later. If it's not this year, it'll definitely be the year. It's not like some of these other organizations where they're on a 10 or 12, 15-year building project. The Red Wings are probably a victim of their own success, having made the playoff 25 years in a row, and they were always finishing at the bottom echelon to a point where you're getting draft choices in the 15s, 25s, 30s, and if you can draft personnel well, you can. But I have no doubt Steve Yzerman is going to do well. Pick it up there, George.
Well, that's a good point, Scott. And a lot of the years that we saw Kenny Holland trade away those draft choices. I mean, when they got in a position to sign free agents or else make a trade, Holland was never hesitant to sell off, to trade off rather, Detroit's draft choices. So, the fact that the Red Wings finished so high, which means they drafted at the bottom, as we all know. But then and couple that with the fact that he got rid of a lot of those draft choices only to make this team stronger and better. And, cripe, we can't complain. 25 years in a row, the Red Wings made the playoffs. Unbelievable streak before it came to a crashing end, and has not been a very nice situation here in Detroit since then, of course. Just like the Tigers, they're struggling to rebuild. But I agree with Tommy. I mean, the Red Wings, have a wonderful farm system set up. Grand Rapids has been a great top affiliate for the Red Wings. That franchise the Griffins have done a great job, as we all know. Over the years, it started back many years ago with Jeff Blashill was their coach. And that's where he earned his wings as a coach. And a lot of those players came through that system and continue to come through. And you made a good point, Tommy, that, some of them are not ready for the NHL right now. We know that. But they will get good seasoning in Grand Rapids. And we know that the Red Wings, this is not a process that's going to take 1, 2, or even 3, 4 years. It could take 5 years. We don't even know. But Steve Yzerman, we have to put our faith in the Yzer plan. And he has proven, like you said, Scott, with the Tampa Bay Lightning and with his management expertise in Team Canada and at the Worlds and all that. So Yzerman, no question about it. I'm confident he's the right guy. It's just going to take time to build it.
Well, here's the thing that we can't lose sight of. Number one, the Red Wings are an original six team. And number two, when they are a free agent destination. I can't say that about the other teams in Metro Detroit, but players will always want to play with the Red Wings. They only won 11 Stanley Cups, for crying out loud. So that isn't the worst thing that's ever happened. And they, so between a free agent destination, original six, anybody, when the Red Wings call, people will listen. And, Mark, obviously being a national guy like you are, the Red Wings are a national brand for sure with a tremendous history.
Well, and you're absolutely right. Tommy and George, and you bring up some great points, but then I got to take it a step further. Maybe the Red Wings are a victim of circumstances. Let's face it. When you look at the Eastern Conference, this is a death march. It's not like the West. You got a few teams in the West, and if the Red Wings were over there, we'd be talking about maybe the Red Wings going to the Stanley Cup or the Western Conference Final more often. But in the East, you're competing with some young guns in Florida and Tampa. You still got the old horses in Washington and Pittsburgh. Boston's a throwback. The Rangers, the Islanders, Columbus just picked up Johnny Gaudreau. This is not easy to get to the playoffs in the East. And you guys alluded to earlier, you might need 105 points to get in the playoffs.
Yeah,
no, that's true.
Yeah.
I mean, nobody said the East is a walk in the park for sure. But again, you know what? Teams, it's one thing to have talent. It's another whether they perform, Mark. And it's just why it makes it very interesting. I personally hated when they awarded the winning team 2 points and the losing team just 1. I like the ties where it was 1-1. I just think they did it because they had to. I've never been a firm believer of that. But that's either here or there. So while we're on the topic of Detroit, so Tommy, is Detroit really a hockey town, or is Denver, Twin Cities, or Boston worth that moniker?
The old Hockeytown moniker, eh? Boy, oh boy,
Yeah.
the Avalanche won a cup before what a quick rebuild they had. That's a tough market. As we all know, if Detroit's really the football town. If the Lions ever won here, this place would go berserk. Right. So as far as for Hockeytown, I mean, you still have your diehard faithful, but that Colorado over that they've got some strong. They're rabid over there for that franchise, and they have very good, right to be. I mean, they're a proven winner again.
Yeah, well, you got the Twin Cities. We all know that the Minnesota as a state, let alone the Minneapolis area, they're considered a hockey haven with the amateur hockey presence. And of course, at one point they had a Minnesota North Stars, now they have Minnesota Wild. And we all know that Boston is a hotbed when it comes to hockey because you have Harvard, you have Boston University, and you have a lot of great colleges out there to complement the Bruins. And of course, I'm not going to talk about Montreal right now because we're talking in Canada. We're just trying to talk about U.S.-based hockey, nothing against our
Florida's even right now.
Well, Tampa, Sunrise, no way. I can tell you right now. I know firsthand. I work at the market, and nothing against the Florida Panthers per se, but part of what Yzerman's developed in Tampa and the way they picked it up. I mean, Tampa's an incredible place. The Florida Panthers have a ways to go. They need to win consistently. You can't win one playoff series since 1996, especially in South Florida, where, if you win, they don't support. The Panthers haven't earned that yet. Not to say that they can't. They have a very savvy general manager in Bill Zito. They just brought in Paul Maurice as the coach, and Joel Quenneville did a good job before he got wrapped up in some activity that nobody would do. But I've always thought Detroit is a hockey town, and they're selling out all the time when they're playing much more competitive hockey. And I don't think we're that far out from it either. I really don't. I think the Red Wings are on the right track. It'll be an important year. And Derek Lalonde, I think, will be a good addition with coach. So, George, let's talk about the hockey town.
Well, I mean, you have to factor in the college and the amateur. I'm not just looking at the pros here. And you made a good point, Scott. I mean, when you look at the greater Boston area, New England in general, and of course, Minneapolis, St. Paul. I mean, you talk about Minnesota, Duluth area, Denver, Tommy alluded to the great hockey area out there. and you look at, I guess if you studied like the NCAA, you look at the Frozen Four. Now, granted, Michigan has been there a lot. U of M, Michigan State does not have a good hockey program, but Michigan has other ones too, in Lake Superior State, Michigan Tech.
Right.
So Michigan overall, I still think is right at the cusp. But again, it's a real close call. I mean, you'd have to look at the number of kids that play amateur hockey. If you really wanted to dig into this and see who is the hockey town, it's a close call. But those are four right on cities, Scott, that you alluded to: Minnesota, Detroit, and Boston, and of course the Denver, Colorado area. It's great. I mean, you can't go wrong with any one of those four. And of course, Chicago. I mean, the Chicago area has long been a hockey hotbed as well, and they've done a great job, obviously, with the Blackhawks. To a lesser extent on the college level, but that was a marketing term. I think, Tommy, you remember that somebody in the Red Wings PR or marketing department started that Hockeytown term. It wasn't granted to Detroit by the commissioner of hockey. It wasn't bestowed on them by the folks at Gallup who do all the polling. It's nothing like that. It was turned out by the marketing department of the Detroit Red Wings, and the Red Wings grabbed it. It was great, and it worked well. It worked so well that they won so many Stanley Cups, 4 of them, since we've been around, that they've won. So I still think Detroit is hockey town, but I'm a little partial.
Yeah, well, also don't lose sight of the fact that University of Denver produces some incredible prospects as well.
Yeah.
So, and anybody can make claim to hockey town, but the Red Wings have cleaned up financially with it. So, Madman, we'll give you a brief opinion on it.
I think when you look at Team USA, and my dad was from Boston, and I got a good friend, Bobby Carpenter, from there, but a lot of your U.S.-born NHLers and Team USA guys, I would think the majority would come out of Boston. I mean, when you look at the Kevin Stevens, the Keith Kachucks, the Bobby Carpenters, not to knock the other cities, but I think Boston might have a little slight edge compared to the other cities.
Fair enough. All right. Well, you know what, Mark? This is a sport you're not all that familiar with, I don't think. But I know Tommy is. Hydroplane races in Detroit. Why money this year? I mean, I know that when I first started working with George WXYZ, I had the great pleasure of meeting Dean Chenoweth. And the hydroplane was big. George probably had some other ones on, but Dean Chenoweth was the first hydroplane. We're going to leave this one over to Tommy to carry us a little bit, and we'll see if you guys want to get involved.
It is a shame that they haven't been. Yeah, they haven't been here now running for a couple of years since COVID, and unfortunately, some of the prior developers of the race, or organizers, had slightly mismanaged and left the race broke. And the new entity that had come on, particularly a gentleman who used to be a driver, his family's always been in the area, Mark Weber, has done a wonderful job up until they decided not to come back and run the Gold Cup, of bringing that sport back to, because it's an expensive sport. You're talking boats coming from Seattle and just maintaining it. But he did a good job getting the bottom line, getting it back to where it was a break even, but they were lacking sponsorship. And it was always continuously the local yacht club, the Detroit Yacht Club, that would step in at the last minute, even just to provide the insurance. And where Mark had fallen short, and I'm not trying to call Mark out because he did a great job, but really whoever was involved with it, the APBA, where they fell short was not being able to make it friendly enough for the fan, bringing in promotional things to try to acquire new fans for the sport. They were strictly set as a traditionalist, that people would come just to watch the races. Well, now we all know that you need some sideshow with it to bring in new fans. And there is nothing really, once you purchase the ticket, and they weren't very friendly to the media. I mean, it also, there wasn't, it's hard to even get a bottle of water when you're walking around that area to covering it. So with all that combined, it's not surprising that it finally fell on itself, because just like everything that happened here around Detroit, everybody was looking for, whether it was going to be Gilbert to bail them out, whether Kid Rock one year was going to come in and put $50,000 in, and it was looking for the Fords to come in and do something because it's a great sport. It may still happen because, that waterfront is so underutilized. There are plans for the Detroit waterfront here. Whether it's in any city that has a waterfront has their, Chicago, as everyone uses the example for Detroit, uses Chicago for it. So I hope it does come back. It's a fantastic summer sport if it's done correctly. And there is some money that people will go pay if you have live music there. If you're, then the sponsors will come and support the sport.
And the last thing you want to do is mistreat the media and not get them interested. And too many sports are going to find out that if you mistreat the media, nobody's going to show up. And that's free advertising, right, George Eichorn?
Yeah, and you know what, guys? Again, I'm not going to harp on it because, like you said, Tommy, that the things were done differently back in the day. But boy, oh boy, we got invited to this party. You would not believe this preview party at the Rooster Tail that was hosted by Bernie Little, and Miss Budweiser helped foot the bill. And you talk about a who's who, Jack McCloskey and, Chuck Daly from the Pistons stopped by. And I mean, it was a who's who. It was just a great kickoff event. And then, of course, Al Ackerman, longtime Detroit sports broadcaster, now deceased, one of the big sportscasters in this town. Al Ackerman used to even call the play-by-play. They used to televise the race on Sunday afternoon, one race, one summer, Sunday. And even Al Ackerman and Channel 4, think about they showed it live. I mean, with their limited cameras and everything like that. Yeah. Our dear friend, Jim Hendrick, was the play-by-play voice, the late Jim Hendrick, and what a great job he did along with Eddie Bush, our friend that was the technical brains behind the operation. You're right, Tommy. I think they were too old-fashioned. They were too stuck in the mud kind of ideas. I agree totally. You had to create a bigger audience and more activities along that waterfront for them, a concert, a picnic, a family atmosphere. And they failed to do that, and I hope it's not gone forever. Detroit has been the home of the Gold Cup for, 50 years or whatever it's been that we've had the Gold Cup race here on our riverfront, and I sure hope that it'll come through. But, like you called it, I mean, they got to have the sponsors, they got to have the media coverage, and
TV, yeah.
Right now,
that sport is too, there's too much of a downtime for them to attract. That's why they would broadcast the race, tape it, then you'd see it in November on ESPN Ocho, or that's the only time they could end up showing it because there's just too much downtime in between the races, and that's why they couldn't attract any type of TV contract there. Yeah, but now it's a different story with internet, right? I mean, it's a different story. They couldn't do it.
Well, can you only imagine if they had streaming and whatever back then? And I know Jim Hendrick.
I remember it was the first one to do it for him.
Well, there you go.
And they didn't even know I did it back, and I had it. It's funny because I didn't even. If I may quickly, I had 4 cameras on the Detroit side, 2 at the yacht club. I got generate a signal from the Renaissance Center, which is about a mile away down the water, and I was able to get it enough signal to do it. And I didn't mention anybody to the boat race people, but we had on a Sunday afternoon for that race. Once people found out that I was trying to do it, we had 145,000 people watching the Sunday race from around the world.
Wow.
And that wasn't even advertised. It wasn't, and I showed them that stuff. I'm like, guys, but that's.
Well, I remember that Jim Hendrick eventually moved to Lakeland, Florida after he migrated down there. Mark, any quick thoughts about hydroplane racing?
Well, it kind of reminds me, and I can't think of the guy that was steering the boat, the America's Cup, when they used to do it off of Newport, Rhode Island, and out in San Diego. Who was the guy? I got a brain fart on it. The guy that was
not Ted Turner.
No, it wasn't Ted Turner.
What was his name? He was a multi-winner.
What Bill Munsey?
No,
not him.
He's a sailboat racer.
Dennis. Was it Dennis?
Dennis Connor or Dennis O'Connor, something like that.
Yeah. America's Cup. Yeah.
Mancini. Eichorn bailed you out of that, my friend.
But I remember seeing that one of those things in Rhode Island. They're nice. The America's Cup was great.
I like Mancini's word choice, seeing one of those things. Okay, so on that note, we're going to transition over from one of those things to auto racing, coming back to downtown Detroit. Okay, I love these transitions and segues. I think they're beautiful. They're just beautiful. So with that said, auto racing is coming back to downtown Detroit. It looks like obviously the Indy cars. But I want to talk about Indy cars when they're taking it off of Belle Isle. And then we're going to even tie Chicago in after we get done with that. So, okay, Mr. Morris, okay, what are your thoughts about the fact that Indy cars and IMSA on the streets of Metro Detroit?
You talk about an organization treating the media correctly and how to promote their sport. IndyCar is absolutely wonderful. They realize the value of the eyes that are needed. And for that track to now be back in downtown Detroit with even being able to attract more viewership and people downtown, the excitement is already set for last year. It was so exciting, that announcement, that you had so many new fans that would come out for the last year at Belle Isle, that they're wondering, walking around the track going, well, this is great. It's intimate, yet it's open. You have access to the drivers. The question was, why are they moving it? This is a fantastic venue at Belle Isle. Why are they moving it? Well, the obvious is, now you're able to attract more sponsorship, more viewers to the sport. And it does add a little bit of an excitement. It's like a whole different change of venue now in the same city. It's going to be very, very exciting. I'm certainly looking forward to it. I know a lot of people in the area, the buzz is already about for next year. So it's going to be exciting.
Yeah, I've covered races over at Belle Isle with George Eichorn and I, so I enjoyed the Detroit Grand Prix. And I used to like watching Indy cars over at Michigan International Speedway out in the Irish Hills. That's
there you go.
Yeah.
And of course, we covered the US 500 out there, and George and I went down to Indianapolis. I bought us a couple of tickets, and we went down there. We had a pretty good old time, George, with the Indy cars. But let's face reality, George. Tell me, you think that Indy cars are more appropriate in downtown Detroit or out at MIS? Because you're only going to get one or the
other. Yeah, unfortunately, the days seem to be gone that we'll get two races. That's, like you said, Scott, that's probably not going to happen. I do miss the Indy cars at MIS, as do a lot of people. But I understand why they had to do this. They had to diversify. They're taking a lead from Formula One with a lot of the street circuits and the road courses and that sort of thing. The F1's been doing that for years and years and decades and decades. So the only thing I don't like about Detroit, this course they designed, is not nearly as challenging as it was back in the day. They've eliminated quite a few of the streets where they used to go down the chute of Cobo Center. You guys know what I mean by that, down that roadway outside the Cobo Hall building. Now it's called Huntington Place, but the course has been modified drastically. But I understand that it had to be done because of some of the pavement and some of the concerns about the buildings and the narrowness of those tight corners, which they used to race in downtown Detroit. All that being said, I mean, you can't beat it. I mean, people in their office buildings, people in their at their jobs can hang out. They're going to get a bigger audience. The restaurants, the pubs in downtown Detroit are going to see increased business. The foot traffic's going to be so much heavier there. It was pretty on Belle Isle. It was nice, like Tommy said. And but the people, I think they reached their maximum of what they could draw on Belle Isle. And now they realize that they got to go back to downtown Detroit. Plus, they know that Detroit has turned the corner as far as a downtown city to visit, and they wanted to be part of that renaissance. Roger Penske, don't forget, is the big brains behind this, and he wanted it back in downtown Detroit, I'm sure, as Mayor Duggan did as well.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a great point, George. You're talking about the fact that they built a couple stadiums there, Comerica Park. You have Ford Field, of course, Little Caesars Arena. So the downtown literally has gotten a facelift. So, now you're having a race where you have a facelift compared to how it was it's certainly a different animal. All right, Mancini, you want to talk about these things here, or what do you know about?
Yeah, I was blessed enough to go and be a part of that Long Beach Grand Prix in April. And man, I'll tell you, that thing is unbelievable. We sat in the hangar, caught a piece of the rubber coming up, but sitting there and watching a race that close with those cars flying is just amazing. And George alluded to the restaurants. It's almost like a Mardi Gras setting. Right. People come from all over and just enjoy it. You can walk around and watch these guys come across and for 80 races. It's unbelievable.
All right. Well, you know what? Let's go ahead and talk about the closest thing to a sister city to Detroit, and that's Chicago. And I have a couple things I want to address tonight on that. Number one, Chicago's adding a NASCAR event on July 4th of 2022. And obviously, they're going to be doing it on the streets as well. And so my question to you is, first of all, give me a brief opinion of how you guys think Chicago is going to do. And then the second part to that question, I'm going to hit you with the Detroit end. Tommy, tell me what your thoughts about Chicago hosting a NASCAR event on the streets.
Boo Chicago. First off, I'm not a big fan of Chicago anything. I think it's an overrated city in general. They're trying to compete with New York, and then they always look down on Detroit. So they're not New York. They're certainly far from Detroit. But as far as for NASCAR, and I think it's, anytime in any city can draw a big name as a sporting event that is, listen, these cities could only wish that they could have NASCAR in their hometowns. Or something similar, a big event like this. So it should be interesting to see if they can stop the weekend violence for long enough to partake. I mean, that's the one thing that,
Right.
If they can do that, and I think it's going to be a success. It is Chicago afterwards. They're going to have a lot of eyes on it. And I don't know if any of you gentlemen would be interested in going to Chicago for close proximity, but you never know. I might venture over there. Right?
Well, when I've gone to Chicago in the past, I mainly covered the Lions and the Bears. So it was a different situation. I stayed where the Lions did. I got the team rate. And I always enjoyed the hospitality I was treated by with Bill Keenest, Mike Murray, James Petralka, and just to give you an overview. So with that said, Tommy, it is a two-part question. Okay, we talked about Chicago hosting the event. But do you think that Detroit could hold a NASCAR event downtown and see it successful? And Mark and George, you're both going to get an opportunity to answer the question in a two-part manner, but we'll let Tommy address it first.
Thank you. I always thought of NASCAR as being on an oval anyway. It's never so much of a street format. That's the only, to that second part of the question, that I would be concerned about. I don't know what the viewership is when they have NASCAR street circuits on the street circuit, but I'm still a big fan of having them bumping doors on an oval or an Indy or someplace that is for that car. I don't know on the street course. I don't know how the cars are probably a little bit. I know they handle well, but not as well as an open wheel car for some of those. It's going to be interesting to see how the track is, how wide you're going to be, if they're going to have any passing ability on this track. I think it's a whole different animal than IndyCar, and we'll see. I guess we'll see. But I think they're going to have a couple issues logistically for that race.
Well, NASCAR does go ahead and race on road courses. I believe Sonoma and Watkins Glen, they do that. So it's not like, and now I believe Indianapolis has built a road course as well.
Are those Sonoma? They're like airport stuff though, aren't they? Like
no, I understand that. They have a lot of land, and I can tell you right now firsthand that I've actually worked up in Sebring, Florida, where the 12 hours, and you want to talk about an incredibly demanding place. That one's one, but you're right, Tommy. They are a little bit more spread out. But let's face the reality, whether you like Chicago or you don't. And I'm going to get into this point after George and Mark chime in. These two cities are. I'll show some comparison contrast to make sure the two cities are there. So George, with that said, you heard the first part of the question. Okay, Chicago's adding a NASCAR event, a street race. Tell me your thoughts about Chicago handling it.
Well, they brought back that one in January to the Coliseum in Los Angeles. They had a NASCAR event. Nobody ever thought that would ever happen again. They've had one on the mud, and back in the old days, they used to race on the sand at Daytona Beach. I think they're on a little nostalgia trip right now. And not only that, but they're trying again, getting back to what you said earlier, Tommy, even about hydroplane racing and NASCAR. They've got to find a way to attract new fans. And the young people want to hang out downtown. Young people don't want to drive an hour and a half to Michigan International Speedway. And, I don't blame NASCAR one bit for trying these different tricks or whatever you want to call these. I don't know. I hope they're not gimmicks, because I agree. There's not a lot of room for passing on those street courses. There's not. Those cars are more wide bodied, obviously, than those Indy cars are. And it's even tight for Indy cars to pass, as you guys know, on these street courses or circuits, as they call them. But that being said, Michigan already lost one of its NASCAR races. We used to have two. We had one in June and we had one in August. They stripped us of that years ago. We're down to one race. In fact, it's coming up this coming Sunday. And hats off to Michigan State. Their two guys are going to be the grand marshals, Izzo and the football coach, Mel Tucker. But anyways, that's a black mark. Okay, so even MIS guys, we lost a NASCAR race, we lost the IndyCar race. But getting back to Chicago, I give them credit. They're trying something. Who knows if it's going to work or not? But I think they will get a lot of fans there. They'll get a lot of new fans, the young people that like to hang out downtown Chicago.
All right. So with that said, George, could a NASCAR race downtown work? You got to remember though what NASCAR is doing. They are adding other markets. You got Nashville, and they're trying to go different places as well. So
you're right, Scott. They are doing that. It seems like there's only a precious few that get a couple races a year.
Well, that's true. And
obviously, the big tracks, Talladega and Daytona and Dover and places. But the Detroit, again, I'd have to see the course if they were going to use the same course circuit as the Indy cars do, the new one in downtown Detroit. They'd have to conduct some surveys and some tests to see if it would be good. I'd like to see it, sure, because you're talking about Chevrolet and Ford are two of the top three, along with Toyota, in the NASCAR race circuit, and it would be great to see them go at each other in the Motor City, the Motor Capital. I mean, that would be pretty intriguing. I wouldn't mind seeing it. Whether they can pull it off or not remains to be seen.
Well, the Renaissance Center, I believe General Motors uses that as their headquarters.
Yes.
And I can tell you right now, I've been to Bristol Motor Speedway and spent like a little bit of money during the holidays and drove around that track. And if anybody wants to know about a bumper car clinic, go to Bristol Motor Speedway. You really have some deep banking. So you're worried about any bumper cars over on the streets. I would encourage you guys to take a ride over to Bristol Motor Speedway. And again, I can tell you right now that Sebring, Florida, it's no easy walk in the park track either. All right, Mancini, I'll repeat the question to you again. So some thoughts about Chicago adding a NASCAR race. And then the part two of that question is, what do you think it would look like in Detroit, Madman?
Well, Chicago, just keep it off the south side because I don't want to get shot. That's the first thing. With Tommy alluded to, with they can put their guns down long enough to get a race in, pretty good. You go around the Sears Tower, you hug the, where the Soldier Field is and stuff like that. It'd be good. But if I can add a site, that would be really interesting to put this thing in. I'd call it the Gas Lamp Grand Prix and put it in San Diego. Kind of go through, the Pacific Ocean there, catch a little at Tijuana. I mean, that would be a good little race to go in San Diego. I don't know why San Diego's not in this thing.
All right, but you know what, though? Right now, San Diego isn't part of the question.
I know that.
So I know you like to throw those occasional
curveballs.
It's okay. I don't mind giving San Diego a plug. They don't have anything but the Padres there anyways, and the Padres will do what they're doing at the trade deadline, but staying back on point, Mark, okay? Let's talk about Chicago. I realize that, who knows, you have Arlington Heights, which will eventually, I think, be the future home of the Bears, not Soldier Field 10, 12 years from now. But let's focus on the point, Mark. Can Chicago handle a street race?
I don't know. That's an interesting question.
That's all right.
That would be, I guess you just got to try it out. It's kind of like winter classics. Which one's going to, prosper more than others? And if they don't do it, then you don't come back there.
All right, well, that's a fair point. Okay, so that's a fair answer. All right, so give me your take, Mark, on whether Detroit can handle it.
I think Detroit could. I really do. I think the way Detroit's handled it before, I really do. Some of these cities that have done it before have an advantage of some of the cities that haven't had it. So, it's the proof is in the pudding.
Well, that's fair. All right, Mark, you rebounded pretty well from your San Diego treat there.
Well, I know Madman. If I could follow up on Madman, he did have a good idea, the visual, because I was kind of surprised, and I would imagine the Ambassador Bridge is the largest bridge for commerce. So I was kind of surprised that through the IndyCar that they didn't have some kind of Canada involvement where they would go across the bridge or through the tunnel. I think maybe back in the day, didn't they go through the tunnel at one time? Wasn't it? No, they never had done that, eh?
I don't
think
if
they had something like that, if they were able to utilize that for these races, I think that would be a draw, a heck of a crowd. Now you got two countries involved.
Well, yeah. See, Mr. Morris. Okay, at least you brought in the word A. So I don't know if we hashtag the word A, but we
He
could
went
probably
off
do that.
topic.
And I
It's
like Mancini.
hockey, eh?
Hey, yeah, don't
Hey.
worry. I don't mind going to Canada once in a while. Use the A word there. We'll see if we can hashtag the show A. See how many Canadians we get marking it up past the bridge. And Mancini, I like to give you a hard time to bust your chops, but with all due respect towards San Diego, I've been to Tijuana before, and they aren't that far. Let's just see whether or not you're going to be in a situation where you get past the border. And I would encourage these guys, if you plan to go to Tijuana, make sure you have a American water there. You don't want to get yourself sick in those. Never mind. Okay.
Yeah.
But, I didn't need to go. I can tell you one experience, which I think we could kid around about, then we'll go on to our last topic for the night, is I'll never forget the time I went to Juarez, Mexico, and for a baseball seminar over in El Paso. And I ended up betting on a dog at the dog races, Bill Walton. I'm thinking, I hope the Bill Walton at the Greyhound track is better than the one that played basketball. He didn't get hurt. Well, you know what? I did bet on the dog. He didn't do very well. And I figured, well, it wasn't that much money. I don't know how many pesos or a couple of dollars I did. But I know the Bill Walton with the Greyhound versus the one with the Celtics, who did great work over with the Portland Trailblazers. They were all both banged up. So there's your little cross-border reference here about if you're into Greyhound racing, I think it's going away anyhow. Sorry, Bill Walton. I wouldn't bet on you again with the Greyhounds. All right, just stick to your commentary. All right, so now that we're on to the Detroit-Chicago theme, I'll just mention one other comparison between the two cities, and then everybody can talk about where they could be gotten a hold of. The two cities can boast each other for having Lake Michigan, Michigan Avenue, and the second city, plus and they do have original 6 teams. So I think they are carbon copies of each other. Who copies who? I don't know. I mean, but we see Michigan Avenue in Chicago. We don't see Chicago Avenue in Michigan. If there is a Chicago reference, it isn't as big as it is out there. So, all right, Tommy, I know that you're a real big Chicago fan, and I know that my wife really loves Chicago PD, who she's got me to go ahead and watch. I'll give you guys a little promo there. I do watch it once in a while. I won't tell you what character I like. It doesn't matter. Oh, maybe White, but whatever. But at any rate, Tommy, let's talk about the two cities in general. Who copies who? And I know that you're partial for Detroit.
Well, I do have Illinois TV, so I do like Chicago in some respect. But I like to think of that. I was thinking about, even while you were talking about the question and how to answer it, that is a tough one. I just think that there's a admiration of. It always seems Chicago discusses Detroit as like they're a younger brother or something,
right?
A younger sibling, and that the respect isn't there, and that it's just not there occasionally. And so, I don't think Detroit copies Chicago. Or if they would have had their waterfront built up as beautiful as Chicago has. Utilize that waterfront. Sports teams, they're both the Bears and the Lions. It tends to be that whatever division you're in, you try to draft and you build teams based on how your teams are in the division. The Wings and the Blackhawks were always shared a division for years. The Bears and the Lions, the Pistons and the Bulls. And so I would say whoever has the more successful franchise is the one that the other city tries to copy. I'll stick with that answer.
Oh, well, that's good. Now, hey, listen, I don't pretend to make these questions easy. Come on. Like you said, Tommy, we spoke earlier, I'm a journalist. I'm a purebred journalist, my friend. But, let's not kid ourselves. The comparison between these. So you do have Lake Michigan, right? Okay,
Yeah,
not Lake
absolutely.
Illinois. Okay, yeah, Michigan Avenue, which does go a long way. And the second city, which I have to tell you, in Chicago, I really enjoyed it. And I think they have a second city nightclub out in Michigan.
Sure.
So, I mean, they're, and I happen to like Chicago, of course, maybe the downtown area. I wouldn't want to go in neighborhoods that don't particularly feel very safe. So I can understand that. And sometimes they both get bad raps a little bit because of a little crime area. But in general, the people in the Midwest are really great. And I've enjoyed my time in Chicago, and I've stayed in some nicer hotels and gotten to walk on Michigan Avenue and had a great time interacting with the locals there. So with that said, George, why don't you talk about the three amigos Okay, we're talking about Lake Michigan, Michigan Avenue, and the Second City. Have you been to the Second City? We know you've been on Michigan Avenue and on Lake Michigan. Well, everybody, and we know Lake Michigan even extends into Wisconsin. So go ahead,
Well,
George.
I like what Chicago does with the Navy Pier. They've done a beautiful job. It's an entertainment area, the Ferris wheel. They've done a much better job than Detroit has on that riverfront property. That being said, Detroit has gotten better. The Ralph Wilson and Mr. Davidson, Bill Davidson, they've sunk a lot of money into the Detroit waterfront. We're really renovating that, extending that from the Belle Isle Bridge, the MacArthur Bridge, as you know, Tommy, all the way to the Ambassador Bridge. The Riverwalk is going to be a reality. So Detroit has really, really done a great job in the last half dozen years of improving their waterfront. Shopping, we can't hold a stick to them. Come on, guys. The Miracle Mile, all those wonderful shops in downtown Chicago for ladies and guys to shop at. You don't have that in Detroit. We're just now starting to build that back. We used to have a great downtown shopping, as some of us know on this call, anchored by, of course, the J.L. Hudson's flagship store, but we don't anymore. So the Michigan Avenue thing is a moot point. Chicago dominates on that. The waterfront, as I mentioned, Lake Michigan, Detroit has the Detroit River. And I think that's great. Comedy, I'm sorry, I'm not going to talk about that. I've never been to Second City, but I would bet that Chicago Second City is much better than Detroit's. I think if you look at history, just look at the show called Saturday Night Live, and you'll see how many of those comedians came from Second City. And trust me, it was not Detroit's Second City, although God bless the late Gilda Radner. She's from Detroit and went to Saturday Night Live. But most of those comedians, they all came from the Second City in Chicago or possibly in New York's comedy circle as well. Chicago's got more population. They got more traffic. They got more murders. They got more headaches than we do. I like the coziness of Detroit. I like the coziness of our downtown. So I don't mind visiting Chicago. You're a nice city to visit, but I'll take my Detroit City.
Well, what I do is I get my wife to go ahead and drive to Chicago when we go to Milwaukee. She does it. I don't have a lot of patience with it. I will if I have to. All right, Madman Mancini, ever been to the Windy City at all?
I've been to the airport. I'm not a big fan of deep dish pizza being Italian, so I'll take the thin crust. But I will tell you one thing that Detroit has over Chicago, and I got a shirt somewhere around here. They got a shirt. It's called Bless the Boys. They don't have that in Chicago.
There
Fair
you
enough.
go.
Fair enough. It's okay. Hey, you know what? We'll take it. All right. Well, that said,
Why do they always pick on you, Madman?
Bring up the world's worst handicap or whatever I pick. They say take the opposite. That's what XM coined the phrase.
Yeah, well, you know what, man, we're just glad you're on our network, and we appreciate the interesting insights that we could have. And I tell you, probably have aged about 50 years since I've known you in the last 3 months, but that's okay. At least I have the ability to age 50 years of you, because if I didn't think you were any good, you wouldn't be on anyway. So to me, you're great, and you certainly added mention to this show, man, that no other individual could, and it is all good. So don't worry, even if you got your geography messed up by using a San Diego reference a little bit, but that's okay. We all say this because we like to kid around with the man. He's truly one of a kind. With that said, folks, this is Fire Up Florida. My name is Scott Morganroth, Motor City Madmouth. Please be joined by Tommy Morris, Madman Mancini, George Eichorn. And I want to let everybody know, subscribe to the South Florida Tribune on our YouTube channel, or visit www.southfloridatribune.com, and follow us on Twitter at Tribune South. To advertise, call 954-304-4941. The audio portion of the show can be heard on Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Apple, Google, and Spotify, wherever you get your podcast. What a show we've had tonight on Fire Up Michigan. I'm fired up thinking about the fact that I had my dream team on here tonight. And with that said, Mancini, why don't you go ahead and let everybody know how they can get a hold of you, what you stand for, and whether anybody on your other shows pick on you like I do. It doesn't make any difference.
Well, us guys from Pittsburgh, we're not the sharpest tools in the shed, but we're in the shed. You can catch me on XM 203, Sirius 217, Philadelphia's WWDB AM 860, Pittsburgh Pirate Podcast with Tarek Brock. Your great show. Another one out of Florida. Now I'm in Jacksonville and New York and Vegas and Phoenix. So we're getting around, man. God bless you, man, and this great crew. I enjoy it each and every Monday.
Yeah, Mark's actually had me on his Philadelphia show. I do a lot work with Bruce
Gotta get George
Kessinger
out
out
there
in the
too,
Bay
and
Area.
Tommy.
So, I mean, and Mark's introduced me to a lot of people as well. So God bless Mark, really. I mean, from one esteemed colleague to another, to me, you've been nothing but a tremendous addition to what we've done. All right, George Eichorn, I know you'll have a book to promote and then some. And then we're going to let this show end where it started with Tommy Morris. Go ahead, George.
Yeah, you can reach me on Twitter at SNGSports99. You can also get a hold of me on LinkedIn at George Eichorn and also on Facebook. And I am the author, as Scott said, of a book called Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air. And it's a great little book. It's a wonderful read, easy read, beautiful pictures of the history of sports broadcasting in Detroit and Michigan, featuring Bob Ufer and Ernie Harwell and Ray Lane and Frank Beckman. And, of course, our own Scott Morganroth is featured, as I think I got a picture of you with the famous late, great Muhammad Ali, and also with Jimmy Connors too, Scott, in that book. Detroit Sports Broadcasters on the Air, available at the South Florida Tribune website.
Great stuff. I'm glad to be a part of it. All right, Tommy Morris or Mark, you had your finger up. Did you want to say something real quick, Mark?
No, he nailed it, man. I was just giving him a thumbs up.
Well, all you need to do with Eichorn is give me PayPal and get one of the books, and then you'll really learn a little bit about the market. With that said, Tommy Morris, they have a song name for it, at least on this broadcast, and I think it's called Vanessa Williams Saved the Best for Last. So you know what? We're going to save the best for last.
Well, I'm really overrated, but thank you. It was a pleasure being here today. Thanks for having me. But first of all, I'm here to unify community, not conquer community. Tommy Morris, you can find me. I'm the founder of World Wide Web TV. It's worldwidewebtv.com and host to 26 streaming channels in your city or your state near you, and founded in Detroit City TV, where you can find me. DetroitCity.tv is where it all started. And thank you for having me. And again, all the same names of the Facebook pages and the social media pages. Don't be a stranger. I certainly don't bite. And if there's anything that I'm sure not only myself, but if I may speak for you guys, reach out to us, right, Scott?
Well,
yeah.
Let us hear from you.
Well, we're looking forward to working with you. I'm wearing a King of the Road hat tonight. It's one of my favorite caps I got at one of the truck stops. And next time we do Fire Up Michigan, I'll be in Cooperstown, New York, doing a little nostalgia there and causing havoc on the road. But anyways, it's been a pleasure with you guys. You guys have been absolutely phenomenal. And I like to bring on different individuals so they can all meet one another and talk sports and anything else that comes to mind. And I couldn't be more delighted with the dream team that I established tonight. And when I say things, not only I say things from my heart and my head. I know what the individuals do to make their commitment to make these shows as good as they can be. I'm only as good as the people I have to work with, and I tell you, I got three of the best ones here on the broadcast tonight. So, meanwhile, with that said, okay, on behalf of Madman Mancini, George Eichorn, and Tommy Morris, my name is Scott Morganroth. Thank you for joining us on this edition of Fire Up Michigan, and we will catch you the next time. And I hope you enjoyed this episode, and you know where to find us. Good night, everybody. God bless, and be safe out there.
Good night.
Thank you.
Night.